Hey guys, Niffenschwander here with another Dark Souls 3 commentary. Today I will digress a bit from discussing the more competitive dueling related things around Dark Souls 3, which seem to be particularly triggering to some parts of the community. Instead, I'm going to trigger some other parts in the community by talking about invasions in this game again. Now, before you click this video away, don't worry, this won't be about the game mechanics and how the invasion system puts invaders in Dark Souls 3 in quite a pickle at times. I already made a video about that, and I feel like I said most of what there is to say about the topic. My today's commentary will rather be on how people view invasions in Souls games, and I'm going to focus on the outright hate and despise for the system some people demonstrate. Let me tell you what I mean. After turning my back on the, let's just say, challenging invasion system in Dark Souls 3 for quite a while in favor of dueling, I've been returning to what I like to do most in Souls games ever since the first title in the series, invading. And I'm glad to say that I even managed to be relatively successful, especially considering the fact that I'm mostly invading with my main character at soul level 120, which is basically the place of organized gang squads and fuck all else. Part of the reason for this success might be the fact that I watched some other YouTubers invade and spank gangs for a little bit of inspiration. And watching guys like Adam Barker 89, Eddie Ghost 92, or even good old Oroboro will never stop to entertain and motivate me. However, watching their videos will inevitably lead to me skimming their comment sections, which is both as entertaining as the respective video itself, as it is frustrating to the point of wanting to punch myself in the face just to make the second-hand embarrassment I feel towards some of those commenters go away. No matter what happens in the video, as long as there is an invasion shown in it, there will be comments like, "Fuck invaders, they are all just griefers. How dare you say anything about the host and his phantoms? You are there to ruin their fun." Or, "Invasions are a stupid mechanic and should not be in the game. I just want to play this game with my friends without being disturbed by anyone." Now, it's of course everyone's right to express any opinion they have on the internet, and I respect that as much as the next guy. Yet I still cannot help to address this mentality and call out the absurdity of it in the context of Souls games as I perceive it. Before I get further into the topic though, I want to make one thing perfectly clear. I've heard people say that this hate towards the invasion mechanic and the people who make use of it is a result of the fact that Souls games these days are much more mainstream than they were in ye golden olden days, and that the influx of noob casuals is what makes those voices so loud. But I have to object here, at least partially. I've been part of the Souls community since the PC release of Dark Souls 1, and I remember there always having been people who had issues with being invaded in Souls games. Some of them went and summoned other players as whites and yellows in the forest to gank invaders in an attempt to punish them for and discourage them from invading. Others went on public forums and bawled their eyes out about those red meanies. What is true, however, is that those voices certainly have become increasingly louder and more numerous as time went on and more new players joined the player base. And frankly, even though I know that this is just how things are and probably always will be, I still cannot help but wonder about this phenomenon. Don't get me wrong, I do understand how especially new players in Souls games are at first intimidated by this mechanic that is found in literally no other game in that exact form. I mean, I was a noob too once, and I distinctly remember the sheer horror the invasion notice evoked in me. Holy fuck, I was struggling with mere PvE. How was I supposed to handle another human player who probably knew a metric fuckton more about this game than me? During my first playthrough, getting invaded pretty much meant certain death, especially since I never summoned other players to help me as I wanted to conquer this game and its challenges on my own. So again, I do understand why people are frightened by invasions in the beginning, I really do. And proceeding from this point, there are basically two options. The first one is to complain about the mechanic that, if we're honest with ourselves and others, not only is not some hidden secret, but instead clearly advertised by the game developers as a feature, and do everything in my power to change a game I am new to so it fits my individual ideas of how it should be better, because I'm the center of the world, of course, and everything and everyone has to cater to me. I personally chose the alternative route and used this weird red sign soapstone I found in the painted world of Ariamis to lay down my sign in the Ulasil township. After finishing my first playthrough, I had read up on what it does and found that it let me fight other players under more relaxed circumstances than invasions, so I could practice the PvP aspect of this game without having to worry about losing anything. Why did I do that, even though at first I had no interest in PvP games at all? Even before I bought the game, I realized that PvP, especially in the form of invasions, was an integral part of this fascinating Dark Souls game, and it was clear to me that in order to experience it to the fullest, I had to embrace this aspect, as there is no way around it if I wanted to play it online, which I did. And again, even though I realized that invasions were fucking horrifying on my first playthrough, and the first few rounds of red sign dueling weren't much better, to be honest. I was so hopelessly shit it was ridiculous. Unlike many other players, I didn't really have that much experience with multiplayer and PvP in video games. And at that time, there also weren't that many videos on how to PvP properly, and stuff like EWGF's backstabbery was much too advanced for the filthy casual noob that I was back then. But I kept at it, hour after hour, day after day, doing nothing but throwing my sign down in the township, getting my ass handed to me, rinse and repeat. Slowly, I started to get better, started to give people bloody noses, started to get the odd win. When I did my second playthrough of the game, I still remember what happened when I got invaded for the first time on this character. I was just about to enter Quellax's fog gate when the infamous message appeared. You have been invaded by a MLG Noobslayer 69. But for the first time ever, my first instinct was not to flee or accept that I'm dead. No. After all that practice, I felt only joyous excitement as I turned around and ran up to the visibly confused invader, who obviously expected a different reaction. And I killed that son of a bitch as if it was my job. This was the moment I knew I was hooked on PvP in Souls games. I myself began invading, and while the first few times I was probably more scared than the hosts whose worlds I entered, it opened up a completely new level of interaction with not only a game I loved, but with people who shared my love for this very game. To this day, this unique mechanic of the Souls games, which seamlessly integrates multiplayer elements into the single-player campaign, is one of the most exciting and fun shit for me I experienced in about 30 years of gaming. However, there are of course people who say they just have no interest in PvP period, and they are only interested in the PvE portion of the game. That's fair in and of itself, of course, and they probably won't be inspired by my little story to try it out themselves. That's okay. What I really wonder about, though, is how they consider it adequate to demand that the game needs to be changed so it fits their expectations better. There should be a co-op only mode. I should be able to turn off invasions. Let's shit on uploaders who show invasions and call them cancer. Holy entitlement. Let's disregard for a moment the fact that every Souls game offered the option to disable invasions by simply playing offline, or by being in phantom form, hollow form, or unembered form. The only exception being Dark Souls 2, where you could still burn human effigies at bonfires to pretty much turn off invasions, but also summoning, of course. Let's also disregard the fact that in every Souls game, the developers put in advantages for the host to pay tribute to the fact that he might be caught in the middle of PvE with his pants down. More health, the ability to heal with consumable healing items like Estus, or the ability to summon help are only some examples of those host advantages, which have been there in most Souls games respectively. Let's disregard all that. Let's say even all that is not enough for you and you still fulminate against the invasion system in Souls games. Why do you play this game? Why do you play the exact one game series that has this unique feature and not one of the literally tens of thousands of other action role-playing games that do not feature such a system? This is what's so incredibly mind-boggling to me. I know those people probably like the PvE aspect, but that's not an issue because that can be enjoyed perfectly fine by playing offline. Or they might like the co-op part of the multiplayer. But do you seriously expect anyone to understand why you want to have the cake and eat it too? Invasions in Souls games have never been there to allow people to grief other players. They have always been a balancing factor for the ability to summon 2 or even more other players to help you, which completely and utterly trivializes the challenge of the game. I don't mean by that this is not a valid way to play the game. I'm saying that this is how it is, and it needs something that compensates for that. Just like a weapon with a high attack rating will have a downside like a slow swing speed, the option of summoning help has the balancing downside of attracting invaders into your world. And let's be real here, in Dark Souls 3, those invaders are usually not even that much of a threat. This is really not that hard of a concept to understand. At least one would have to think so. And yet, when people find ways to deal with the challenge of invading by finding powerful setups or playstyles, people fume with rage. Which is understandable to a certain degree. It means that Mr. Co-op host will have to deal with an actual threat in the form of an invader, and people apparently dislike that, even though they play a game that is marketed as particularly challenging. If that is true is a different question. It is a mindset that I will never understand, not because I'm such a hardcore pro myself, but simply because I knew from the beginning what I was getting myself into when I started to play Souls games online. And I also don't understand it because embracing this mechanic both as a host and as an invader opened up such a huge plus of exciting entertainment with the Souls games that led to me putting literally thousands of hours into them. I sometimes want to grab people and shake some sense into them, tell them that they are missing out on so much if all they do with the invasion aspect of Souls games is to try to avoid and trivialize it as much as they can. One thing I won't do, however, is ask people to stop ganking. Yes, it puts invaders in quite a difficult situation, at least in Dark Souls 3, where the odds are so ridiculously stacked against us. But boy howdy does that make shit even more exciting. And if I can spank such a gank, I can even look good for the YouTubes. I embrace every aspect of the multiplayer component of the Souls games, no matter if it goes against me and my role in them or not. But people have to understand that this also means that invaders will do everything it takes for them to do their job, to kill the host. As I depicted in the beginning, you can see this as something to get annoyed at, or you can take it as an incentive to become better at the game yourself. It fills me with a lot of hope that while the amount of invasion haters seems to increase with the player base becoming bigger, also a lot of new people join us Reds in our hunt. If you're on the fence about this topic, and only experienced it so far as an invaded host, give it a try. People will rage against you, but don't let that deter you. You will almost certainly find that being an invader is without the shadow of a doubt absolutely worth it. Now, go watch some Gangspank videos, laugh at those inane comments you will find on them, then fire up the game and pop that red orb. There are lots and lots of hosts to kill. What are you waiting for? Have a good one, folks. See ya.